the types of tickets that they wanted to be selling, that Prince Harry doesn't attract the audience that they assumed he was going to attract.
Is Meghan Markle's team practicing their PR Pilates again? Me think so.
But his ailing father, who has cancer, it's just rubbing it in their faces as they continue to pursue what they were instructed not to. And, you know, I really sympathize with the royal family here because it feels like they've lost complete control.
Meghan Markle, she's over there not even doing solo shots. She's like, I'll do a group picture. They paid $3,200 and y'all are gonna get one group shot.
Well. You have got to give it to Meghan. She's not anything if persistent because she's managed to infiltrate the Mexican community to start spreading news in her favor in order to discredit us.
Harry and Meghan cannot leave the royal roles behind. This is an absolute cosplay royal tour, and the red flags are there. King Charles, Harry and Meghan are going to do whatever they can to undermine the monarchy, and he is allowing them.
He entered the speaking scene with a bold claim, charging $1 million per speech. But what's unfolding right now in Melbourne tells a very different story. Ticket sales are slow. Seats remain empty. And despite all the promotion, the atmosphere isn't matching the excitement that was expected. At the moment, Harry is in Australia delivering what his team still calls a major speaking tour. The main focus is a workplace mental health summit in Melbourne.
This was a man that, upon leaving the British royal family, was demanding $1 million per speech. And now it's like, no, that's not going to happen for you. Not when we've seen what you're capable of saying, and it's not much.
Meghan Markle hasn't been able to sell 300 tickets.
On the surface, everything looks right. A professional venue, a 2-day event, and an audience made up of industry professionals. But when you look closer, the numbers begin to reveal something else entirely. Ticket prices didn't just drop once, they were reduced step by step. They started at $2,400, then dropped to $2,000, then to $1,000, and now sit at $500 for online access.
So originally it was a 2-day summit that was priced like, I want to say close to $2,400. There was another tier that was $2,000, but now they've added an additional tier out of desperation for $1,000 to physically be there. But if you'd like to stream it online, you can do that for about $500. But this is a clear sign that they're not selling the types of tickets that they wanted to be selling.
That's 4 separate price cuts for a single event built around one speaker. And throughout all of this, one number keeps coming up again, $1 million. That was the reported fee per speech when Harry first stepped into this space. It was widely discussed and never clearly denied. Now compare that to Melbourne, where reports suggest a fee closer to $50,000. That's a drop from $1 million to $50,000, and even with that, filling seats is still a challenge. This isn't just a small adjustment, it's a major shift. A decline of nearly 95% over a few years is hard to ignore. Even after multiple price reductions, attendance still isn't meeting expectations.
But to spend thousands of dollars to go hear Meghan Markle talk about business advice or how to live your best life, she can't even run her own businesses, okay? The jams, jellies, and dog biscuits and all the as-ever stuff, it's horrible. It's barely selling. We haven't seen new products in months. The Netflix deal, down the tubes. So I don't understand who's paying to get business advice from Meghan.
Kinsey Schofield spoke about this directly this week. She pointed out that Harry isn't attracting the crowd his team expected. And this isn't just opinion, it's backed by actual ticket sales. The earlier event in Washington already hinted at this trend. Tickets there were priced at $1,800. Expectations were high, but the feedback from attendees told a different story.
Prince Harry doesn't attract the audience that they assumed he was going to attract.
Everywhere they go, they spread additional misery. And because the brand itself, the brand identity of Harry and Meghan is so incredibly bad that toxicity just gets spread everywhere they touch.
One attendee even summed it up by saying, "What the heck?" There was no deep research, no clear structure, and no solid data, just personal opinions shared with a paying audience.
the reaction from the audience was like, what the heck? I think it was $1,800 for those tickets to sit and listen to a privileged man complain about his upbringing in a castle.
People paid high prices expecting real value. Now Melbourne seems to be following the same pattern. At this point, it's no longer about one event, it's about consistency. The original plan was clear: position Harry as a high-level speaker alongside global leaders and respected experts. But that level comes with expectations, strong insight, authority, and something genuinely useful.
He's trying to flog tickets to something so boring it hurts and nobody wants to go. Meanwhile, she's selling selfies at a hotel in Sydney for about $3,000 a pop. It's embarrassing how far these two have fallen, isn't it?
Now the big question becomes harder to avoid. Does the content actually justify the price? Washington raised doubts. Melbourne is strengthening them. This is where public perception begins to change in a lasting way. Across different events, the format hasn't really changed. He takes the stage, and the focus stays on personal stories. That's where the gap becomes obvious. Audiences come in expecting expertise, practical tools, and ideas they can use. Instead, they get personal experiences without a clear structure.
But for Harry and Meghan, it's not working, and it hasn't worked. It's not working. It hasn't worked for ages. And they keep trying the same things again and again, thinking that will right the ship.
When this gap keeps repeating, the effects show quickly. The next booking comes in at a lower fee, from $1 million down to $50,000, along with repeated ticket price cuts and still unfilled seats. This doesn't look like a temporary issue. It points to a direction. Some are now calling it the $1 million gap, highlighting the difference between the original image and the current reality. A 95% drop in such a short time signals a major reset in how value is being seen. What makes it more noticeable is that even at $50,000, demand hasn't stabilized.
Harry got on stage in DC and moaned and groaned about how he's lacked privacy since he was born, offered no solutions. It was just another mental breakdown for an audience to witness. And a lot of the people in DC were disappointed that they'd paid such a significant, I think it was $1,800 for those tickets.
Because all you bring is bad luck. All you bring is nastiness. All you bring is toxicity wherever you go.
Ticket sales have struggled at every price level, raising a bigger question. Where is the real demand? There's also another factor adding pressure. The same person speaking about workplace mental health has reportedly seen around 25 employees leave his organization since 2020. That's not a small number. And the contrast is hard to miss. Falling speaking fees, low attendance, staff turnover, and at the same time messaging focused on workplace well-being. It creates a disconnect that audiences are beginning to notice.
So my advice to all the women, take the money and invest it, okay? Take the money and enjoy being at home. Don't pay thousands of dollars to go sit under this cheap fluorescent lighting and listen to Meghan Markle talk like she's a female founder. The only thing she found was a rich, famous husband.
Looking back at what some call the DC precedent, the pattern becomes clearer. Tickets were priced at $1,800. Expectations were high, but the response didn't match. Again, there was no deep research, no structured approach, just personal viewpoints shared with a paying audience. And this is important. It hasn't been unpredictable. The format has stayed the same across events. No data-driven insights, no detailed studies, just repeated reliance on personal experience. So the question keeps growing. If people are paying for expertise but getting something else, what exactly are these events offering? There's another layer that adds even more contrast. While one side is speaking to partially filled rooms, reports suggest Meghan is preparing to launch a private members club in Australia connected to Soho House, an exclusive, application-based network. That shift stands out. Moving from public speaking platforms to private, high-end networks signals a different direction, one that people are noticing.
Rob Shooter had told me that Meghan was going to be quietly, she's going to wait to the last minute to announce it, but quietly will be also opening a Soho House over there. And the Daily Mail over the last few days has reported the same thing.
At this point, the discussion goes beyond ticket prices or attendance. It becomes about perception. The image that was once built no longer fully matches what people are seeing now. There was a time when the positioning felt clear, a high-value speaker delivering meaningful insights. That expectation hasn't disappeared, but the reaction to it is changing.
It's a private elite club that you have to submit a request to join. You have to pay monthly to leave the ultimate, elite in the British royal family to go cut ribbons at a Soho house. I'm sorry, but what a fall from grace.
Event after event, similar feedback keeps coming up. The gap between expectation and reality is becoming harder to ignore. People walk in expecting depth, structure, and practical advice. They leave wondering what they actually gained. Some reactions are very direct. Attendees have reportedly said, "That wasn't what I expected," and asked, "Where was the real advice?" Comments like that don't disappear, they spread. And in this space, that matters. Reputation isn't built through marketing alone, it comes from real experiences. One weak event can be overlooked. But when the same feedback keeps repeating, it starts to form a clear pattern. Organizers notice. Audiences become more selective. Buyers hesitate. The urgency that once drove ticket sales begins to fade. The excitement behind those high prices slowly wears off, not all at once, but gradually. A strong comparison often mentioned is Catherine's early years project. That work is backed by research. Data is collected, studies are published, and findings are shared. When she speaks, there's structure, purpose, and clear takeaways. The focus stays on the work, not just personal stories. Now compare that to Melbourne, a reported $50,000 appearance, multiple ticket price cuts, and still an unfilled venue. No research preview, no clear framework shared beforehand. The difference is obvious. On one side, content is built on structure. On the other, it relies mainly on presence. And audiences are responding to that difference in real time. Another important point is the silence. There's been no clear explanation for the repeated price drops. No detailed breakdown of what's being offered. No response to the criticism. And that silence stands out. This is a team that used to respond quickly. Statements came fast. Criticism was addressed immediately.
I think a great example of that is Catherine's early years project. Occasionally they'll release the research that she's generated through that project.
But now, when questions focus on pricing, attendance, and feedback, nothing. At this stage, silence begins to shape the story on its own. The original goal was ambitious: reach bigger audiences and create stronger impact. But the current reality looks different: an unfilled venue, unclear expertise, and ticket prices dropping from $1 million expectations to much lower figures. The platform still exists, but its value is being questioned more openly. At the same time, there are reports of other appearances and exclusive projects happening elsewhere. Same name, same visibility, but a very different reaction from the public. What started with strong expectations is now turning into uncertainty. And people are paying attention. This story isn't finished yet. What happens next will depend on how future audiences respond.
People catching on and realizing that maybe he's not an authority on all of these things. And do we really want to spend such a significant amount of money to listen to a grown man cry?
Prince Harry and Meghan Markle's return down under could not be going more disastrously for them. It is an epic train wreck so far, and they haven't even left the North American continent.
To leave the ultimate elite in the British royal family to go cut ribbons at a Soho house, I'm sorry, but what a fall from grace.
She's never supported women. When the Queen was on her deathbed, what was she doing? She was doing Oprah interviews. She was doing Oprah interviews accusing her in-laws of racism and saying that they drove her to be miserable and drove her to be depressed. And this is called the Her Best Life Retreat.
And now, everything comes down to one moment: the actual delivery. Forget the headlines. Ignore the pricing. Move past the speculation. What matters is what happens on stage. That's where perception either holds or breaks. All the promotion and positioning mean nothing if the audience doesn't feel real value. In the end, it comes down to one question: what do people actually take away? Right now, that question carries weight. People aren't attending casually. They come with doubts, questions, and expectations shaped by everything they've heard. Some are open-minded. Some are cautious. Others are simply waiting to see if things change. Because this moment matters. If the message connects, if it delivers something useful, perception can shift quickly. One strong performance can rebuild trust and change the direction. But if the same outcome repeats, the reaction won't stay contained. It spreads. It grows. One comment leads to another. Conversations build. Opinions align. And that's where the real pressure is. This is no longer about promises, it's about proof. Every word matters. Every point either adds value or highlights the gap. This isn't just another event, it's a test. A test of value. A test of credibility. A test of whether people still believe it's worth showing up. And once it's done, there's no second version. What happens live becomes the reference point. After that, the real impact shows up in conversations, posts, and shared experiences. If the event delivers, momentum builds naturally. If it doesn't, negative reactions spread even faster. Each event adds to the bigger picture. Over time, those experiences shape a reputation that becomes harder to change. That's how momentum works. It either builds or breaks. And one thing is clear. Value isn't decided by titles or past recognition. It's decided by the audience in real time. They decide if it's worth it. If it delivers. If they would recommend it. No engagement means no momentum. No strong reaction means no demand. It's that simple. Now all attention turns to what happens next. Will the response begin to shift? Or will the same concerns continue? Because at this stage, it's no longer about what's promised. It's about what's proven. And that proof will shape what comes next. If you have thoughts on this, share them. Let's hear your perspective. And if this breakdown caught your interest, stay tuned for more insights like this. Don't forget to like and share it with someone who should see it.